on this episode of the Social Impact Podcast.
Recognizing how one is wired, what
Mm.
your passion is, and like you said, there's so many social issues, but I think you can either identify an issue or you can identify your giftedness. And I think my giftedness is service. And so that allows me a plethora of opportunities, right?
Welcome to the Social Impact Podcast, where people like you and I are making sustainable change throughout the world. Learn why they do it and how you can be a change maker in your community and across the globe. Each week we hear from people on their social issue and what compels them to make an impact. Hi everyone, my name is Bree Jensen, and today I'm thrilled to introduce you to our first guest, Dr. Barbara Dickerson. I am so happy that she chose to spend a few minutes with us sharing her extensive career and wisdom with us. Her career spans education as well as government. She was a teacher in elementary school, high school, as well as undergrad and graduate students. And she also worked as the liaison for mental health for a congresswoman. I cannot wait to have her share all of her experiences, including her elected official experiences with all of you that are looking to go into advocacy or any kind of public service. So let's get started. All right. Well, Barbara, thank you so much for joining the first season of the Social Impact Podcast. And I think you were probably the first person I asked because you are always at the top of my list for people that I call my mentor from afar. I've never officially asked you to be my mentor, but we joke about how many times I reach out to you about things because you really are truly so wise. And I know that word can be thrown around these days, but I really do look to you for a lot of wisdom and counsel. And so thank you for taking your time to be with us. And, there's so many things I'd love to dive into, but do you mind just sharing your kind of a little bit of your career journey? You're an advocate. You've done, you've been an elected official. You've worked in education. You've done so many great things. You're a mom, you're a grandmom. So do you mind just kind of sharing little pieces of your journey?
Sure. So I think it's easiest to talk about in terms of, if I kind of think of a linear pattern. It wasn't linear, but kind of.
Right.
So, the education piece was something that I started off when as an graduate of an undergrad institution. And so I started in K-12, moved from there to the university, went both on the student affairs side and the academic side, holding positions as deans and directors of various student affairs student affairs groups, such as the student union at ASU. And then I had an opportunity to teach internationally, which was just a great experience, both on the African continent, South America, Central America. So it's been just really wonderful. So then my career kind of shifted a bit when we were in California. I had an opportunity there to run for elected office that I had never really thought about. So I ran successful campaigns, was on a K-12 board, a community college board. And it was at that time that I came to the attention of one of our congressional reps, and then I became a liaison for her, worked out of her office. And there I also served as a director of a nonprofit and a director of a local foundation. So those are kind of my broad strokes. So yeah. And so now I work with an organization on volunteer engagement and do grandma stuff and mom stuff, and yeah. wife stuff, and all the youngers in that time too.
And frankly, all the stuff, right? Yeah. Just when you think you can slow down, it never slows down.
Yeah, yeah.
There's so many things in your story. And I think that as change agents, just to
Mhm,
kind of identify a group of people, it can be kind of hard to identify your next path or your next move. I feel like, especially people that are so passionate about social issues, there's
mhm.
so much to do. And I think there's so much to be done. How did you, throughout your life, identify which steps to take, which things to focus on, and what to do next?
That's a really good question. I think that I was not intentional about seeking out, um, well, I wasn't intentional, first of all, about knowing how I was wired. And I think I now say that I'm wired to serve. And so I think that knowing that helped me to then position myself to be open to other opportunities. So, like I said, I never thought I'd run for an elected office, but somebody approached me and they said, "Oh, you really should do this. We need your voice at the table." And I thought, well, sure. So, so I did it. And then the nonprofit, I actually started as a coach to the executive director, and then she left the state and said, "Oh," and I went on the board and became a board member. Then when she left the state, she goes, "So we really need, you to step in." And I didn't do that for a number of years. I tried to keep a real job and a paying job. Let me rephrase that. A paying job. And because the nonprofit couldn't really afford to pay an executive
Mm-hmm.
director.
Mm-hmm.
And I just found that that was where I should have, that was what I was supposed to be doing. So yeah, so some of it is recognizing how one is wired,
Mm,
what your passion is, and like you said, there's so many social issues, but
mm-hmm.
I think you can either identify an issue or you can identify your giftedness, and I
Hmm.
think my giftedness is service, and so that allows me a plethora of opportunities, right? So during COVID, when we relocated from California to Arizona, there wasn't, it was like, what do you do during the time that everybody is shut down?
Mm-hmm.
And I just kept seeking guidance. I kept, being during my meditation and prayer time, I just kept trying to focus myself and trying to be open to possibilities. And so I was introduced to an organization and started volunteering with them. And then the next thing I knew, I'm their volunteer engagement person. So there you go.
Mm-hmm. So there you go.
There you go.
I love it. I mean, I think that's so good, identifying who you are instead of identifying what you'll do. I think I'm reflecting, and we've had these conversations one on one about um, some of my thoughts of how I was wired when I was in my early 20s. And I just was very much like, this is who I'm called to be, and kind of on this intense path of, and if it doesn't work out, I'm so disappointed, and it has to happen before I'm 30. And then this has to happen before I'm 40, and all those
Right.
markers. And maybe that is a little bit how people that are advocates are wired, that you're very passionate.
Yeah, yeah.
However, finding that balance and sitting in that space of who am I, and being open to the journey and where kind of the twists and turns take you. I think that's been one thing that's been most fun through the journey as I look back.
Yes.
Can you share a little bit more about how, here's the $1,000,000 question.
Yes.
How do you sit in who you are and be still with that notion and be kind of open to what could come?
Yeah. So I think a lot of it is being really thoughtful about who's in your circle, right? I mean,
Hmm.
we talk about that a lot, and especially as women, we talk about who's our cheerleaders, who are
Mhm.
supporters, and I think finding time to spend with those people around you, because you don't know all about yourself, right? You only
Right.
know what you know. So having an opportunity to sit with people who also can speak into your life
Mm-hmm.
and say, I see this, or, gosh, you're really good at that. And I mean, I remember clearly a point in time in my journey where I was at the university, and um, I was invited to a meeting, and I can't remember what the meeting was, but I clearly remember this one woman at this round table just being so intentional about bringing me into the conversation. She kept saying, "And
Mm.
Barbara, what do you think? And Barbara, that sounds like a great idea. Can you talk some more about that?" So
Mm.
I think, um, having that group around you, having
Mm-hmm.
some people who can really speak to your talents, your gifts, how you're wired is really helpful. And then I journal. That's just my
Mm-hmm.
outlet. It's
Mm-hmm.
just the place that I can say, I can then look back and say, oh, wow, look what happened in this situation. Or gosh, I was really off base
Mm.
in that journey, in that part of the journey. So
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, it's about others and being quiet with myself.
Mm.
And for people who are more introverts, they may not need others, but I think that being quiet with yourself is really critical.
That is really critical. And thinking of the people that I know, okay, maybe myself at the first and foremost, but also others that I know that are advocates that are in social change arenas, they want to run fast, right? There's a lot to do, and it's hard to take time for self, and it's hard to reflect. And even I think it's kind of the idea of like make the mistakes and figure it out later.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
and let's just get it done. And I was at a conference this week actually on sustainability, and there was a young person panel which was really great. They were
yeah.
all in their 20s, and they were like, there's no time, we have to do this now. And you can hear their passion, and you want to get up and rally around them. But how do you take the time to make sure that you're centered, that you're running the right direction, that you're focused, that you're measuring your impact? How do you do that?
Yeah. I think um, that will differ for everyone, right? Because
Right.
I think we all live in a certain context. So you may have a spouse, you may have a partner, you may have children,
Mm-hmm.
you may have
Mm-hmm.
grandchildren. So I think for me, I I escape through books. And so that is one vehicle that takes me out of my context and put me in a different space and
Mm-hmm.
help me to free my mind to think about different things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and then, and then, you know, I'm not a big, I hate gyms. I just hate them. But I, but I love swimming.
Hmm.
Um, and so for me, when I'm in the water and all I'm doing is swimming, that just my mind, I mean, I can't tell you how many thoughts to come through. And then I get out and I go, oh, okay, I can go and do this and that. Or,
Yeah. Yeah.
some people is hiking, some people is walking. So
Mm-hmm.
I think everybody has to find the thing in their lives that gives them the space that takes them out of their typical context and
Mm-hmm.
allows
Mm-hmm.
them to actually um, just be. And so their mind can be open
Mm-hmm.
and free to listening to, and I call it the spirit moving, so that you can say, oh, okay, now I need to think about this and focus on
Right.
this.
Right. I love
Mhm.
that, taking it out of your context. It's kind of like that removal and thinking about something else. I actually picked up Zumba lately.
Oh, yes,
So
yes.
that's, and it was funny because I kind of got emotional. I was doing Zumba outside and the sun was setting, and I was looking at my city and just having a moment because Zumba is so different than my everyday life that I had to do something that different to just feel free. And it made me just feel gratitude and thankfulness, like
Yes.
even for my city and where I'm trying to serve. So
Yeah.
kind of funny, but very true. And I'm really curious too about social issues. So I think we align in our social issues. Education and mental health is my two key social issues.
Right.
I'm in a sphere right now, working at Pepperdine, working with students, and some people want to make social change, but they're having a hard time identifying a focus.
Mm.
What made you rally behind education? Maybe we'll start there with education. And then I'm curious, what did you see in education and what can still be done? So much, I'm sure,
Oh my
but
gosh, so much.
yes, so
So,
much.
so the latter is so much, and I probably can't even
Right.
begin to enumerate. But and I don't think I've ever shared my life beginnings with you.
Mm. Hmm.
So, being born in the segregated South to a
Mm.
mom who did not have a high school diploma,
Mm.
and then having her make a conscious choice, along with several other African Americans at that time, to leave the South and move either north or west. She moved west. We went to
Mm.
California. Um, it was just really clear to me that education was the vehicle to get out um, of the scrimping on, the food insecurity we felt, the housing insecurity we felt. And so I don't know where that wisdom came from at 10, 11, 12,
Wow.
but that I was really clear that,
Mm.
okay, I need to do well. And I wasn't a stellar student, but I did well enough to
Hmm.
then, get into college and do other things. I think for me, because education made such a difference in my personal life, it
Hmm.
opened, I can't, well, all those things I talked about earlier, all those doors that were open, they wouldn't have been open
Mhm.
to me otherwise.
Mm, mhm.
And, but the other thing, and I tell my students and I tell young adults this all the time, it opens the doors for your family because I was able to then share with my siblings, my parents, have allowed them to have experiences that otherwise they never would have had
Mhm.
because of
Wow.
my entree into um, or taking advantage of education and then those doors being open to me. So I just think that is the key. And even I worked with mental health and in that
Mhm.
arena I just think education is the key. We can't um, I have a niece who is a psychiatrist, and she and I talk about just the stigma around, especially in the African American community, of us seeking care,
Mm.
and it's that self care piece that's so critical to all of us, and we haven't made it part of our national dialogue so that people can feel comfortable saying, yeah, I have a therapist, or yeah, I went to see somebody as I work through this issue. They always think that it implies that they're less than. And for
Mhm.
me, it's the beginning of being more than or all that you can be,
Wow.
when you
Mhm.
can step out and seek assistance. So
Yeah, that's beautiful. And so was your mom at your high school and college graduation?
my mom was, and my mom, she became somewhat of my shiro. She and my father had their own, my
Mm.
stepfather had their own dance, um, but she actually went back to high school after she became a grandmother. She went
Wow.
back to high school, got her high school diploma, and then went on and got her AA as a result.
That's
Yeah,
beautiful.
yeah. So
Go mom.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
amazing. Oh my goodness.
yeah. So.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that story.
Mhm.
So I'm curious, since we are talking about family,
Mhm.
it's a sad statistic that a lot of people that work in nonprofit, ministers, change makers, government officials, people in public service tend to get divorced or don't have great relationships with their kids because they're serving others.
Yeah.
What has been your secret sauce throughout the years? to do both. I mean, I'm not going to use the word balance because I don't think that's a thing,
I don't think
but
it's a thing. And I was thinking about that, and I actually I was actually writing my dissertation. I want to say when we took my husband and I chose to help one of my siblings who wasn't able to parent, and we took her twin boys who were 13, and my daughter was 13. So I had
wow.
two
Yeah.
13-year-olds and a 7-year-old. And
Okay.
they all went to, and I put them all in different schools. It was a nightmare. But if I look back now, I said, what was I thinking? At the time, it made lots of sense. So I
I've
think
had so many of those moments. At the time, it made
and
sense.
at time it made lots of sense. And and I have been encouraged by, especially by them and my daughter, who, um, you know, being 13, they were with us for 4 years, and um, it's interesting to see how they have taken some of our values, some of the
Hmm.
values that stemmed
Mhm.
from their time with us, and tried
Wow.
to establish families and carry out those values. Part of it is your partnership with your partner. I mean, I
Yeah.
have to say, my husband has really been my biggest cheerleader. He's been my, when I was writing, he was my editor. I mean, he's just been phenomenal. And I think that makes a real difference. And my daughter said something once, and I hadn't thought about this a lot, but she said, because she's still looking for Mr. Right, and she said, there what I see in you and dad is the ability to go off and do your own work and then come together and be good about that. You don't
Hmm.
have to be in each other's space, but you then create a third space, for each other.
Mhm.
And so it was really heartwarming to hear her describe it. And she
Yeah.
was a lot more eloquent than I am. But that's one thing. And then with our kids, I mean, really, when I was doing my research and dissertation writing, my husband was so great. I mean, he would take the kids and take them up to the mountains for a weekend, or give me, and then I went to a hotel for a weekend rather, and then they were at home. And then
Mhm.
um, one of the other times some of the other times was that I made a conscious choice of, going without sleep. So I would, go to bed with my spouse, get up at midnight. So we'd go to bed, say 9 or 10, get up at midnight. I'd do my work, and then I'd, stay up until everybody got up and got ready for. So some of
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
a personal, sacrifice, but
Right.
I felt like they were sacrificing, so it was okay. We all sacrificed, you know.
Yeah, yeah, I hear that because you hear that from a lot of women, especially
Right.
that you just have to decide you're going to do the early mornings. And that's when you're doing
Exactly.
homework, and knowing what your best for that day is still your best.
Exactly.
And, I completely agree that you have to have the partnership and you have to have the support. I'll speak candidly. My husband and I have had good times and not so good times with that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, I remember when I first started the first business I tried to launch, I didn't have the support I had expected, and it caused a lot of issues. And now through communication, I'm doing way more than I've ever done, and
Yes.
he's more supportive than he's ever been, and it's made it so much easier. Not that it's easy, but it's helpful.
Sure.
So how do you initiate those conversations with your partner,
Well,
without it
you
becoming a huge
Yeah,
issue?
yeah. I mean, I echo what you said. I mean, we had some challenge. I mean, I tell married couples, no marriage is perfect because we're not
Mhm.
perfect people. So the best we can hope for is a healthy marriage, right? And healthy marriages, there are down times, valleys that you're like, okay, I could sit him outside on the curb and put free around his neck. And the help, and there are other times when you can't stand to be away from them, so I, I, for us, we because we both had been married before, I think we came into the marriage with a few more tools, perhaps, and
Mm-hmm.
probably a bit more intentional about
Mm-hmm.
talking and communicating. And yet, I just had a flashback. There was a time I remember him being very unhappy about something. I don't remember.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know what it was. And to this day, I'm not sure he could even tell you because he probably
Right.
doesn't remember the time. But I remember us going through this period that was just really, just like, okay, let's go to church and okay, let's go. And I'm like, why are we even doing this?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, so yeah, I think there are, uh, I mean, I just think you have to be intentional and focused. And yet I also think you have to allow for marriage to sometimes be icky, to be
Mm-hmm. Good
uncomfortable,
point.
and to just say, yeah, today I'm not feeling like this is a good marriage, but I'm committed to the relationship. So I'm going to walk through this and this gunk, and then we'll, you know, then we usually get to a place where you can talk and, you know.
Such a good time, such a good point. Timing, right? It is. It's such a
Exactly.
good point. And
Exactly.
sometimes, and for me, understanding, I'm not always in the best of moods. So maybe
Exactly.
I need
Exactly.
to give my partner a little grace and find a
Yeah.
better time to talk about things. And
Yeah.
maybe it's a season. Maybe
Exactly.
it's a season of yuck.
Exactly.
And I've had
Exactly.
some of those seasons, and
Yeah, and I have too. I mean, we're going on 43 years in December. So, I mean, yeah, you just kind of go, okay. And as you grow together, and if you're committed to the journey, then you just say, okay, it's one of those periods. And
mm-hmm,
you don't languish in it too much.
mm-hmm,
And I know that one of the things I've learned, and I used to always ask my spouse, okay, so tell me what's behind that, and he'd look at me like, okay, really and truly, this is not a therapy session. And so that's
here
and
we go.
and
Right.
and sometimes he wasn't sure what was behind some of the comments or reaction or whatever,
Uh-huh.
and I used to get really upset with that. I used to,
Hmm.
kind of like hammer him, like, "Are you sure? You have to know." And then it came to me that not everyone is wired the same way, and so fancy that. God made us all really different and differently, and so as a result, I have been able to let him be in his place.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have to be a lot more, like you said, we have to be a lot more grace giving to each other.
Yes. Yes. Sometimes, in fact, yesterday I came back from a trip, and it's usually after traveling, because, and it happens to me too. If my husband's traveling, it's a lot to take care of our mini children, um, and I just felt like he was not intentionally, but like kind of picking a fight. And the old me would kind of like take the bait. I say the old me, like from last week.
Sure, sure. I got you. Every day is a
But
new day.
yes, but yesterday I just decided I was just going to stay quiet, and it wasn't worth it. And then we were fine the rest of the night. I'm like, oh,
Exactly.
that works.
Yeah, yeah. Like I
What's
said,
really worth
sometimes,
it?
yeah, sometimes it really is allowing people the space to
Hmm.
just whatever is going on in their head, to just be. And then, there's
Yeah. That's so good. Well, it's nice talking about family and partners, because I think it does play a huge role in the ability to be change makers and to have that support.
yeah.
And so, we met through the mental health consortium that you were hosting for Congresswomen here in California. And so mental health is a huge deal. Local politics to me is a huge deal. I love my city of Pasadena, love serving here. So I'm curious, for people that are listening, they may be thinking about running for office at some point. Can you give a few? I would love some like practical, maybe like the first 3 things you need to do to become, let's say, like a city elected official. And then maybe some emotional tips because it's probably both and.
Yeah, that's good. Um, I would say be clear about who you are.
Hmm.
That's the first thing. Because if you're not, you're going to be, any dirt that's thrown, or rocks that are tried to be thrown, they will damage you, and you will either, you know, um, just lose yourself in that, or
Mm-hmm.
you'll think that you have to then throw dirt back or rocks back or whatever. So I think that's really critical. And I think that when I ran for office, I think people were surprised because I did have some stuff thrown at me, and they kept saying, "Why aren't you saying anything?" I said, "Well, why should I?" So I think knowing yourself and being clear about who you are, why you're running, why you're choosing to run, and look at it as, I am giving the people, the residents, an opportunity to choose another way, to choose me. And if they don't, that doesn't mean I'm not good. It just means that they chose somebody else. And so I think those are the three major things I would say: knowing yourself, not getting caught up in the rock throwing, and looking at it and knowing why you're running, and then looking at it truly as just giving people a choice. And so you aren't running against anyone. So people said to me on both occasions, "Oh, you're running against the incumbent." I said, "No, I'm running for a position to give the residents an opportunity to choose something different, to choose a different voice." And if they chose the voice, my voice, and I'm very grateful. But I have seen people literally devastated by their voice not being chosen. But in my world is like, I had such a full life that this wasn't the only thing in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I had kids, I had a family, so I had work. So you have to really know that it's okay to lose.
That's so good. And I
And
do love I'm running for something. I mean,
yes,
that's
yeah,
the essence of being a change maker is
right.
knowing where you stand and what you
Right.
represent.
Right.
That's so
And
good.
and so you don't want to ever get caught up, or one doesn't want to ever get caught up in, oh, the incumbent, or you're running for someone's seat. No, I'm running for this. So be really clear about what your platform is and what you stand for.
That's fantastic advice. And hopefully you won't take things as personally either because you're representing the issue and the
Exactly.
needs.
Exactly. And herein, especially in this political climate, herein is, to me, um, that's the critical piece. So that when you are running and your platform are issues, then you don't have to demonize your opponent. You don't have to demonize other people who are running for the same seat. You don't have to demonize people who disagree. You can just say, with your position, you can say, "Great, we agree that we disagree," and be okay. And so I think one of the best and the worst experiences I had was running for the college board. And it was the best experience because someone of high profile was running for the office as well. And she and I had the most healthy um, relationship through that race. And we didn't know each other very well, but she was very well known in the community. But we didn't throw dirt, we didn't say anything. It was a very healthy relationship. It was the worst because there was someone who didn't know me, who wasn't very well known in the community, and just kept throwing dirt. And people kept saying, "Why aren't you saying anything? Why aren't you saying anything?" And I kept saying, the person really doesn't know me. So there's nothing for me to say. So I think not getting caught up in that is so critical in today's political climate, especially.
Absolutely. Great advice. So I'll be calling you when I'm all in my headspace. I need to
Get
get
ready to run. Yep. Just have a great platform. That's my thing. You have to have a great platform. I mean, people have to know why you're running. And I think campaigns, platforms have to be positive. You have to say, this is what I'm passionate about. And, for me, both cases was education. I was passionate about ensuring that the K-12 students had the preparation that they needed. I saw my mom, so my mom got her best job after she got her AA degree. And my dad too. I mean, my stepdad. Both of them, I just saw what education could do. So I knew that was a great tool.
Yes, absolutely. And where my head wants to take these conversations is into education reform and mental health access. And I'm realizing these are like
Yes, yes, big.
more episodes. And
Yes,
so
yes.
I'm going to hold off and maybe we can get you back to do 2 more episodes, one on education and one on mental health, because there's so many things that I love to talk about in those areas. And I know you have so many insights, but I will pause because you've already shared so many great things. For each of our guests, we're doing a quick rapid fire 3 questions to end it off. So I will ask you the questions. The first one is, what is your purpose or motivation for change?
I probably am motivated by living in a space of gratitude. I just feel so very grateful for the life journey that I've been given, even with the start that I had. I'm grateful for that because it propelled me to do more and to see people as people of possibilities. So, yeah.
No, I love that very much. So what are your well-being tips for those that are working in service to others?
Yeah, I love talking to people who are in the service fields because I always caution those who are new, who are novice in entering the field, that they can't change anyone. I think once you recognize you personally cannot change another person, you can create environments, you can create a context and give them tools, but actual implementing the tools, navigating, you can help them navigate a space, but you can't make them. So I think once change agents realize that the change that we usually want to see on a personal and societal level is something that we can put out tools, we can create opportunities, but we can't control what people actually do with them.
Very good.
We have to be okay with that. And so for me, I can't tell you how long ago I used to tell my children, both are now adults, but I used to say to them, you can only control you. So you can't say, oh, if I do this dance, then this person will do that dance. You can't do that. You can only control you. And so recognizing that, it has always been very helpful to me to stay centered and to stay grounded and not get so overwhelmed with the tasks before us. And then the second thing is I've become a great listener to myself and to that inner voice, that spirit that I think resides within me. I've just become a really good listener. And so if I am not feeling my best, either emotionally or physically or spiritually, I step back. I purposely step back. And whether that means that I go on a long walk, or I just go out with a girlfriend and talk about anything but what my work is. I'm getting really good at that, and um, I think the first time that it dawned on me that I really needed to do that was probably 15 years ago. When I went in to lead the nonprofit, it was at a really critical point of either closing or not, and I was working so hard around the clock, and I just felt so weary, and I just went on a 5-day silent retreat. And people who know me were shocked because they said, my daughter's like, I can talk, you can talk to a stop sign. So how could you be silent for 5 days? But it was the best thing because
Wow.
I just felt totally depleted, so I think learning to listen to yourself, listen to that inner voice, and make sure that you take care of yourself, and I think that keeps you from being feeling like you can solve all of the world's problems, and take small bites, right? Take small bites,
Right.
because
Right.
there are lots of problems, and
Right.
within one problem, the mental health problem, there are all these areas, right? So take small bites. So I'm just working this because somebody else is going to work that, and somebody else is going to work that. So I don't have to feel responsible for every social
Yes.
problem.
Yes.
I can just
Yes.
feel responsible for the piece that I'm working on.
Yes. That is so key. And being okay, I think that I always felt like I would push myself to my limit and over my limit because I didn't want to miss an opportunity, or I didn't want to miss a conversation or a chance to help this person or that person. But it's always going to be there. So,
Exactly.
but I won't always be there if I'm burnt out.
Exactly.
Yes. Very good. And the last one is, how can I, meaning all of us that are listening, make an impact?
Yeah. When I graduated with my PhD, I walked across the stage at ASU, and I walked down, and at the end of the ceremony, my family, an extended family, came and was coming toward me. And this young lady came behind me, and she tapped me on my shoulder. And I said, "Hi." And she goes, "Thank you so much." And I thought, I didn't know who she was. And to this day, I still don't know who she was. And I said, "Okay." She goes, "No, you don't know your presence, your walking across that stage gave me confidence that I too can walk across the stage." So,
Wow.
we can be impacts whether we are conscious of it or not. That's why I tell people all the time, you never know who's watching you. You never know. And that was such an eye-opening experience for me that I just was like, okay, so now I'm really conscious of the fact that people are watching you to help them become their best self. And that in itself is the essence of change, right? That in itself is like, that's what we're working for. And so,
Yes.
wow, what a gift that every day each of us have an opportunity to step out of our context and into the larger world and make a difference in someone's life. And you don't know what that's going to be. And you may never have the person come up and touch you on the shoulder and say, "Thank you for doing that." But wow, I mean, that to me that has stayed with me to this day. And that's been, wow, over 20 years ago, more than 20 years ago. But yeah.
That's a beautiful way to end. I'm teary-eyed. I just think that's so beautiful. What a story. You can make an impact by being yourself, by having a presence and making an impact by the way that you treat others. So
Right.
thank you so much, Barbara.
Oh,
I
you're welcome.
love all of your insights always. Don't
Well,
you worry. I'm sure something, in fact, I already have something I'll be emailing you about. shortly.
Well,
um,
I'm honored to be one of your first, Bree, and I have to tell you, you are one of the young women that I love watching to see what how God is going to shape and use your lives. It's just such a joy because I think, wow, to be that intuitive and to be that aware of your life's journey at this stage in your life. It just delights me. So thank you
Thank
for
you. That means the
for
world.
delighting me.
Thank you. That means so much to me. Thank you. Thank you. And we will have to record those other 5 podcast episodes in the future on mental health and education. But stay
Absolutely.
tuned, and I'm so thankful. I hope you enjoyed the conversation today. If you would like to stay up on all things the Social Impact Podcast, please find us at thesocialimpact.co. Also, I do business consulting and coaching, and if you're looking for ways to make an impact through your business or your project, I'd love to see how I can help. Reach out to me on social media at Bree_Jensen_ or schedule a free consultation on the website. Next week on the podcast, we have one of the creators of Airly, which is the brand new sustainable product out of Post. It's going to be a conversation about how you can make your product sustainable and good for the environment. So we'll see you next week.